Welcome back to part 22 of setting up the Power Platform Centre of Excellence. This one's going to round off the video series as we're not going to go into the extension of the COE starter kit. We're just going to keep it bare bones. But in this video, following on from the previous one, we're going to specifically talk about upgrading the ALM Accelerator for Power Platform solution. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find ourselves in our Centre of Excellence environment. We've clicked on Solutions in the left-hand navigation, and now we're going to click on Import Solution. Browse. At this point in time, I'm now browsing to the latest version of the extracted COE starter kit zip file, and I'm locating our Centre of Excellence ALM Accelerator, and I'm going to choose the one with the latest version managed. So the current version we've got here, I don't know if you can just see in the background, is 1.0. And then I think that's a date there, isn't it? 0.2. So there is actually a later version. I'm going to go for this one. So again, don't confuse this with the Maker one. This is the one that starts Centre of Excellence ALM Accelerator. Again, I believe it is currently in preview. So whilst, use it at your discretion within a production environment, but be fully prepared for it to be taken away whilst it's in a preview status. We'll click Next. If there's any new connectors and that requiring connections or new environment variables, we'll come across that at this point in time. I'm going to click on Import. Although I am somewhat surprised because, okay. It's saying this version is already installed. Let me just come back a moment. I'll probably have the latest version, but let me just try this one. Yeah, okay. You can't go backwards in version. Okay, not to worry. You would import the solution, you'd browse to your file. Let's say this was a newer version. It would detect that it's a newer version, and therefore under advanced settings, you would get some upgrade options, but you can tend to just leave that as the default upgrade import option. But be aware that any components that aren't in the newer version will be deleted with the upgrade selected. But again, if you've not done customizations, you want it to track what Microsoft are basically suggesting. So we'd click Import, which is kind of a bit futile in my instance because it's just going to apply the same things. So moving on from that, you've imported the latest version of the solution. We're now going to come into our custom connector that we get as part of this. So I'm going to expand Dataverse, and then I'm going to come down to custom connectors. And we've got our custom Azure DevOps. So I'm going to go into edit this. Although, in fact, what I'm going to do, because I'm just playing with fire here, I will wait for this solution to import. We'll come back after it's successfully imported like we would if it was a later version, and then we'll carry on with updating the custom connector. Okay, now we can see that that's successfully been imported, and it wasn't really up to much. So if we look at the history, it didn't take any time at all. If we now come into our custom connectors, now we will need to reference again the client ID, the client secret, and resource URL. Although I'm just going to, so custom Azure DevOps, let's go in and edit. And all we're really doing here is we're going through the process of just reconfirming things and ensuring it still works. So I'm going to, fortunately, I do still have this information. So if we click on edit, provide the client/application ID, I believe we're fine to leave tenant ID as common. I'm just going to pop in the secret. Now, if you didn't have this, you'd have to come to your app registration that you set up for the ALM Accelerator. If you didn't know what, ideally you'd be retrieving the secret from an Azure Key Vault, but let's say worst case scenario, just create a new secret and you can get the rest of the details from the overview area. So coming back into here, I'm just going to confirm what we want to use for the resource URL. Okay, so for the resource URL, we want the application client ID of the DevOps application. Although I'm just thinking that this is actually, let's think of a good way we can get this again. Now, there was the trick where if you watch one of the ALM playlist videos, that you can go into an in private browser session and get it from the URL when you're at the login page. But if we come into API permissions, and if we go add a permission again, and if I do API, and I'm going to do Azure DevOps, and I'm going to copy this one here. Then if we come into here, I'm going to specify that for the resource URL. I'm now going to click onto the test area, and I am going to come down to, I believe before when we were setting this up, we just did get organization. So we'll just do a test operation against this just to make sure we get a 200 status, which we do. So that should all be fine. The redirect URL shouldn't have changed, so that's fine. And we'll click on Update Connector. Okay, we're going to round off this video here because that's essentially, we have upgraded the core components. However, when we go through actually making use of it, we will touch on setting up pipelines within Azure DevOps. And I believe there are some policies around the custom connector as well. So, because the next step would be to update the pipelines in Azure DevOps, but we don't really have a project that we want to resync. So we'll leave it there. Thank you for watching.